Oil prices have spiked after US President Donald Trump announced a full and complete blockade on all sanctioned oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela. President Nicolas Maduro has condemned the blockade, calling it a grotesque threat, and has accused Washington of trying to take over his country's resources. Venezuela's struggling economy depends on its oil exports. The country is home to the world's largest proven oil reserves. The US is the second largest buyer of Venezuelan crude oil after China.
Getting land, oil rights, whatever we had, they took it away because we had a president that maybe wasn't watching. But they're not going to do that. We want it back. They took our oil rights. We had a lot of oil there. As you know, they threw our companies out, and we want it back.
Well, President Nicolas Maduro says he won't let the US take what belongs to Venezuela.
Today, I spoke with the UN Secretary General. We spoke at length, and I laid out to him what the scale of aggression and threats have been, and what happened yesterday and today when the government of the United States says that it belongs to them and that the Venezuelans are stealing their oil. So Venezuela's oil belongs to them. The Venezuelan minerals and gold belong to them. And what we've never heard before, that the Venezuelan land belongs to them and that we must give them back immediately. Honestly, it's a warlike and colonial intention.
Meanwhile, the United Nations is calling for restraint and urging the US and Venezuela to seek a diplomatic solution to the dispute.
What the Secretary General is focused on is avoiding any further escalation. The Secretary General calls for restraint and for the immediate de-escalation of the situation. He calls on all stakeholders to honor their obligations under international law, including the UN Charter and any other applicable legal framework to safeguard peace in the region. And, of course, as always, he believes that any difference must be resolved by peaceful means.
Let's bring in Francisco Rodriguez. He's the former head of the Economic and Financial Advisory of the Venezuelan National Assembly. He joins us live from Denver, Colorado. Francisco, good to have you with us. So, Trump announced a few days ago this total blockade on all sanctioned Venezuelan oil tankers coming in and out of Venezuelan waters. What does this actually mean, Francisco, and how's this blockade going to work then?
Yeah, well, it's actually not totally clear what it means because the president mentioned sanctioned oil tankers. Now, in principle, there are sanctions on Venezuelan oil. So you could understand that as saying any tanker carrying sanctioned oil, that is oil from Venezuela. Or you could think that it applies just to those tankers carrying Venezuelan oil that have been explicitly sanctioned, which still are about 40% of the fleet that carries Venezuelan oil. Now, the thing is that Venezuela doesn't do this by choice because the country's sanctioned. It's hard for it to get tankers to transport its oil. So basically, it's trapped in this situation where it's using these tankers that the U.S. does not accept. But the bottom line is that the U.S. has imposed very tight sanctions on Venezuela, and now it's enforcing them through military means. Now it's effectively saying, I'm going to stop the tankers carrying that oil.
Yeah, and we know that oil is Venezuela's main source of income. The oil industry, we're told, contributes to 90% of its export revenues. How will this blockade then affect Venezuela's struggling economy and its finances going forward?
Well, it can be disastrous. It can be catastrophic. If Venezuela suffers a decline of 50% or more in its oil revenues, then we're talking about the country's economy contracting by double digits, possibly by 20-30%. So that would be the equivalent of a Great Depression in Venezuela. And this is a country that's already reeling from an economic collapse. Its GDP declined by 71% between 2012 and 2020. More than a quarter of the population has left the country. So if you go to this stage of maximum pressure, you're going to have another massive exodus, and quite possibly a famine in Venezuela, or at least very serious food shortages.
And we heard from Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro saying he won't let the US take what belongs to Venezuela. What do you make, briefly, of Maduro's response and handling of this crisis so far as it continues to escalate even further?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Trump yesterday actually talked about the oil, which is something he had always referred to: drugs, migration, but not the oil. He appears to be referring to some renegotiation of oil contracts that Hugo Chavez did in 2007. And this is something that happens in many countries in the world. In fact, there have been many nationalizations, and Venezuela's oil industry was nationalized in 1976, much before Chavez came to power. But these renegotiations are the type of standard things that, countries change their laws and they change the conditions for foreign investment. So it's something that's, in fact, pretty normal. I mean, threatening to invade a country because they'd renegotiated its contract with oil companies, or even because they decided to nationalize its oil industry, is something that we definitely have not seen in the last century.
Francisco Rodriguez, really good to get your thoughts and your analysis, Francisco. Many thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.